Hi guys, I'm back. So today what I wanted to talk about is what it means to be an influencer. I know that's a term that we hear more commonly now in this generation, but what does it really mean to be an influencer? Influence is a powerful thing. If you think about it, like everything involves influence or suggestion. Influence means to have the capacity to have an effect on character, development, and behavior of someone or something. Everyone has an influence on something or someone. You matter. You think about it, that seems like such a cliche thing we say anymore. You matter. You matter to me. You matter here. You matter in the grand scheme of things. But you really do matter. Someone sees you, people watch you. Think about it. People go to a park, a mall, or anywhere that a bunch of people are usually to people watch. I used to do it with my grandma all the time. We'd literally just go sit on a bench or we'd sit in the middle of Costco and sit on one of the couches and just observe people. It also helped that my grandma was a Christian counselor for so many years. And we literally would just watch people. You look at their appearance, you look at what they're wearing, you look at their behavior, how they're talking, tone of voice. You're observing people. That's how people learn community. That's how people learn culture. You think about it with children, that's the development of children. Like they're observing our behavior, they're observing our voice tone, how to say words, sounding out, phonics, like all of that stuff. That's how kids build community, relationship, social skills. That's influence. What influences you have determine a lot of the person that you are. Of course, there's some things about you that are ingrained in you, but really, a learned behavior, learned is actually a synonym to influence. So, what's the source of that? The answer would be God. Fun fact. God is the source of all that stuff because the only reason we exist, the only reason that we do the things that we do and our brain works the way it does, is God. Throughout the Bible, everyone in it was influenced in some way, whether it was from God or the enemy or the circumstances around them to make a decision based on their own will. I mean, look at Abraham. He followed God and was made into a great nation. His descendants were as numerous as the stars in the sky. But he took some twists and turns in his walk with God. God didn't make him great because of his actions. Remember that. God did not make Abraham a great nation or bless him like he did because of his actions. He blessed him because of his faith and his righteousness. In Genesis 15, it talks about Lord's covenant with Abraham. And it says in verse 6 of chapter 15, and Abram was what his name was before God gave him a new life and basically called him Abraham. Believed the Lord, and the Lord declared him righteous because of his faith. Then he told him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur and the Chaldeans to give you this land, which was a promise that is later on in the Bible, earlier on. But God explicitly says it right there. I made him righteous because of his faith. He made a lot of choices that affected generations. I'm not going to get into it right now because it's a whole other sermon, but basically when Abraham had Ishmael before he had before he had Isaac, my bad. Isaac had Jacob. Before he had him, Ishmael actually turned out to be the ancestor of Muhammad that started Islam. Wild. There's a lot more that goes into that. There's a lot of more ancestry and situations and history with that. But that is the story. The land that Ishmael fled to with his mother Hagar is considered Mecca. It's very interesting when you read the Bible because influence and the decisions we make, and whether it's a negative decision or it's a positive decision, our children and future generations are affected by that. When you look in Genesis and you look at the situation with Ishmael and Hagar, and you come down here, and it's really interesting. I'm going to find it really fast for you because I was not prepared to find this. It says, this son of yours, this is in chapter 16 of Genesis. This son of yours will be a wild one, free and untamed as a wild donkey. He will be against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live at odds with the rest of his brothers. That's a pretty, like, when you're told that as a pregnant mother by God, how wild. How just, what do you do with that? Yet she continued on, and the story will go on, and you can read about it in Genesis if you choose to. But learning about Ishmael's life and learning about how God redeemed Abraham after his fleshy decision that he obeyed his wife, which you'll see about Sarah in there. She had some struggles as well. But getting back on track, basically, yes, it was because of his faith that he was blessed. Abraham's influence has affected the entire course of civilizations. God put you where you are for a specific purpose. He put Abraham where he was for a specific purpose, and you are put where you are for a specific purpose. The people you encounter on a day-to-day basis need what you have to offer and what God has blessed you with. Your gifts matter, and what you do with them matters. The example you set transcends so many other lives than you'll ever realize. It's true, whether you're someone working at Costco, whether you're somebody working down the street at the grocery store, whether you're somebody working at the church, or whether you're the homeless man outside. You matter, your gifts matter, God put you there for a purpose. My dad unfortunately passed away in 2005 from cancer, and he did not live his life as a believer of Jesus. Not saying he didn't believe there was God, but he wasn't a walking, talking Christian. When my dad was in the hospital and he was dying, I was 11 years old, and my dad's best friend, which is my Uncle Brian, he came to visit him while he was in the hospital. And there's a whole other story that goes before this where my dad, some people get weird about visions, but my dad did have a vision of some very scary things. And basically, as he was sitting with my Uncle Brian, his best friend, there was a cup of water on my dad's end table. And they were talking back and forth. And all of a sudden, Brian prayed for my dad and prayed over my dad. And my dad looked at him and went, "Brian, you're a Christian? You believe in Jesus?" Now, mind you, they had been friends for decades. They had been partiers together. My dad literally idolized my Uncle Brian. And when he found out that his best friend loved Jesus, the game changed for him, because he's like, "I want that. If you're a Christian, I want to be a Christian because I want to be like you. How do I get that? How do I have what you have?" My Uncle Brian had my father accept Jesus Christ 10 hours before my dad died. God waits to the last second. That's also a sneak peek of something I'm going to talk about in some of my videos. God doesn't give up. He waits till the last second. There is opportunity until that last moment. And my father accepted Jesus Christ, and as best as you can baptize somebody in a hospital bed, my Uncle Brian did that for my dad. And my dad just closed his eyes, and he was still in a coma. He was still alive, but he just closed his eyes, and there was so much peace over my father. He did not have any more panic. He didn't have any more fear. There was no apprehension. He just laid down. And yes, my father succumbed to his cancer, but he is in the glory of God, and that is influence. My Uncle Brian's influence is the reason my father is with Jesus today. Sorry. That is why I love talking about being an influencer, because you matter. What you do matters, whether it's positive or negative. Like I said, looking in Genesis 15, it talks about a covenant. A covenant is a contract. It's a bond that God made with Abraham. You think about children and learning and watching and what they see, like in movies and TV shows. Like they are so suggestive. Like they're a sponge. Anything they see, they're gonna pick up on that. Like kids say the darndest things. Um, like an innocent child, if you're in a weird situation and you told a child a secret, they're 1000% gonna blurt that secret out. I mean, when I'm at work and a little kid comes through and they're like, "There's a baby in my mommy's tummy," and I'm like, "That's awesome." I mean, kids just say whatever. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's a little shocking, it's a little awkward, but you know, kids say the darndest things. But that's exactly what influence and example cultivates. It's a learned behavior that seems to be or is accepted. That's what they think is okay. They just do it because that's what they're seeing. Influence is the same way, because we can rationalize in our adult heads that, well, this person does it, or my mother always did it that way, or my grandmother did it that way, or you can go up and up and up, so it must be okay. Because those are our influences, those are who we are around. That's where we get our approval and our acceptance and our vindication, I guess. Now, as we get into this, what the world calls sin isn't, or sorry, what the Bible calls sin is what the world calls normal. Yep, I know that's controversial, and I know that is hard for some people to hear, even myself to hear. But what we call okay, or what we can rationalize in our head as okay, is just sin. I don't believe that people choose to be influenced by negative, ongoing things. I don't believe that people willingly go out and say, I want to be negatively influenced today. I just don't think we do that as people. I don't do that as a person, and I haven't observed people just actively going out, want to become negative, wanting to have negative things happen to them because of influences around them. It's just things that our brain can twist and turn and do all that stuff because of our flesh, or that the enemy can get in our head and say, well, that's okay, or just a little bit won't hurt you. That's a falsehood. That is an attack from the enemy. That's what happens when you aren't following Jesus. Those little voices, because like the angel and the devil on the shoulder, if the angel is not strong, or your conscience, which would be the Holy Spirit, isn't exercised, this person's going to win. Just remember that. Human beings want to be remembered and feel worthy. That's our goal. We want to feel worthy and we want to be remembered. That's why legacy is so emphasized, or impact. We do. It's ingrained in us. We are created that way. Yet we rationalize the things we want to do based on fleshy feelings to be good and acceptable. So that will give us impact. Becomes a learned behavior to the people around us and continues through the generations, not only to our own families, but even others close to us. If you don't think you influence your friends' children, and even strangers, just look at ads, look at TV, look at movies, even the people watching around us. It's true. You influence even other people's children. You do. People watch you. If you're a significant person in your friends' children's lives, or your nieces and nephews, or your little cousins, or your kids' friends, they're aware of you and they're aware of your behavior. That also ties into generational sin. Being an influencer has a very close hand-in-hand relationship with generational sin. If you haven't seen my generational sin video, I advise you to watch that one and then watch this one, because it's very, very similar. Think of it this way. We are the donkey carrying Jesus into the city. Yeah, I know that sounds really funny, and yes, we could make a bunch of jokes about that. But the triumphal entry, when he enters in, and then later on is where he's crucified, we aren't the focus. He is. He is the focus. We're just carrying it in. We are the vessel. Now, you can determine what kind of vessel you are. We have free will. We determine what vessel we are, what we actually hold, whether we're an old wineskin or a new wineskin. Yeah, that's wedding in Cana stuff talking about later in John. It's like one of the first stories of the Bible. It's a wedding and basically talking about new wineskins and old wineskins. You can't hold new wine in old wineskins. It's like John chapter 2, I want to say. I could be wrong on that. Let me tell you for sure real fast just because I'm talking about it. Oh, It is. Bum, bum, bum. It is John chapter 2. Cool. Look at me knowing my Bible. But our life is but a vapor. So what do you want to be? Do you want to be a fiery, fragrant remembrance of like when you blow a candle out and you can still smell it throughout the room? Is that the kind of life you want to have for somebody? Or do you want to be a dark cloud of smoke that people cough and choke and trip over because they can't see? Or they choke because they can't breathe? Do you want to be a breath of fresh air? Or do you want to be polluted air? I'm just keeping it real. That's literally some people's memory makes us choke. And some people's memory gives us all that warmth and comfort when we remember that fragrance of their life. We all have those people, and that literally is totally what remembering is. You have so much influence. That impact you have will continue on. The verse I'm going to read you. Read over here and get my Bible real quick. My other one. This is the Passion Translation. They've only translated the Passion for the New Testament, but I love it because it's just a very emotional translation. But Mark chapter 11, verse 1 says, "Now they were approaching Jerusalem. They arrived at the place of the stables near Bethany on the Mount of Olives, and Jesus sent 2 disciples ahead." Um, and you get through it, and then it's talking about the triumphal entry. And it talks about how that the donkey's colt that they chose had never been ridden before. It was a brand new colt. God wants to give you a brand new life. When you accept Jesus Christ, you are reborn. So that means your life is all brand new. When I got baptized when I was 16, I literally remember feeling all brand new inside. I had rededicated my life to the Lord and I got baptized. And the feeling that you feel is just a brand new feeling. Like it's almost indescribable. But the reason I'm talking about this right now, about the cult that's never been ridden, is because even if you have a past, I do. I have a past. But even if you have a past, you can still renew your influence. You can change the course of your life to follow God, and God can renew the dark clouds in your life. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.